And a good Monday morning, Birds fans. Thanks for hopping on right here at the start of Birds 365. Oh, we got a football week coming your way. It was a football week all last week, and now it truly is. From stem to stern, every single day, all Eagles, all football, all the time. Because, yes, we talk Birds 365, and we talk it the majority of the time here on Birds 365. But, yeah, they're going to have to play other teams in the National Football League, so we will check in with them from time to time. I check in with my co-host this morning, Jeff Kerr. How was your weekend, JK?
Pretty good, Jody. Turned 33. Big birthday weekend for me. Was pretty excited. Had nice steak, nice trip yesterday. I'm good to go.
33? Well, we know I'm not 33. And I'm pretty damn sure our buddy, he was there for a minute and he disappeared. We're going to try and get John McMullen up again, the usual co-host of the show. Johnny Mac's going to hop on with us earlier, coming up today and going forward if the Eagles schedule sticks as it is, which is the coach being available before practice. Different than they did it in week number one. Coach Sirianni would hop in and give the media guys their time after practice was over and done with, but they're flipping the script a little bit this week, and they're going to try and make Coach Sirianni early available. So Johnny Mac needs to get down there that much more early and that much more quickly, which means he's going to join us earlier as he does right now. J-Mac, you ready to rock?
I am ready to rock. Little Wi-Fi mistake again. I got to remember to turn that off when I'm outside. It's a grind. It's about getting 1% better every day, as Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I was going to say, you sound too much like Nick Sirianni.
Yeah.
But we'll
starting
forgive
to rub
you that.
off on me. He's like Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I got it. Do you watch that show, Kerr?
Oh, my God. I love Ted Lasso. I can quote him all day.
Oh, shoot. I got to start watching that because he mentioned that I had Yogi Roth on my CBS show yesterday. He made a Ted Lasso reference, so I guess I got to start watching. All right, forget Ted Lasso. Let's talk about Nick Sirianni. Week one, J-Mac, hang with him both after practice for your media sessions and watching him work the field. Has he lived up to what you thought he would be first week running a training camp for the Birds?
Yeah, I mean, he's as advertised. Obviously, he's very energetic. It's not an act. That's his personality. That's who he is, sort of 24/7 with cameras on, cameras off. Everything's quick. Everything's fast-paced. A little bit reminiscent of Chip Kelly in that manner, how practices are run. Very short. I mean, our buddy Adam Kaplan, friend of the show, he said it's the shortest practice. He was there the other day, shortest training camp practice he's ever seen. 75 minutes, basically on Wednesday and Friday. So it's interesting. I will say that it's he's very hands-on. Obviously, he's got a background coaching wide receivers. He was a wide receiver in college. He's been very hands-on with that position group, which is understandable because, look, they've been a disaster the last 2 years in the Doug Peterson regime. So they need to get better there. So he seems to be spending a lot of time. Now, my one concern about that is you're the head coach of the football team. You got to worry about other things. It can't be just about getting the receivers up to speed. So it's 4 days, and I think he's certainly not overwhelmed by everything. Anyone who thought that was going to happen, I don't think that was fair at the time. I certainly think he's proving it's not fair.
John, one thing, when Nick Sirianni got hired, I was talking to a couple of people around the league. They said he's very hands-on, and you pointed that out, specifically with quarterbacks and wide receivers. How has he been evaluating Jalen Hurts over these last couple of days?
Yeah, the most interesting thing with Jalen, because we focused on the mechanics a lot, and Nick has said a couple times, he doesn't worry about the top half of his body. He doesn't worry about the throwing motion. Certain guys are going to have certain proclivities from that. If you want to compare it to a shooting style in the NBA, he's mainly focused on the bottom half and the footwork. So from a fundamentals, it was interesting. That's a lot of information. Typically, you don't get that from head coaches in this league. so he's more worried about the footwork than anything else. And yeah, we all knew that would be a work in progress. And I think you've seen that. You know, I did my stock market for the first 4 practices. I'm going to do that on the off days. So you have the Bulls, the Bears, and the stagnant stocks, I like to call them. And, you know, Jalen looks like the same guy was last year. An intriguing playmaker, and you wonder if he can be NFL accurate. And I don't think we have that answer, but we're only, 4 practices in.
Now, I hear what you're saying about the coach giving you a breadth of information, which is different than you probably get from most coaches about his mechanics and this, that, and the other thing. Here's what I judge: results. And I know it's just practice, but I know that you're keeping track and everybody's keeping track. How many balls are being caught? How many balls are being dropped? How many balls aren't even close? How many balls are being picked off? Don't tell me about how he looks and his mechanics. Yeah, that's up to you guys. We're simpletons. We're fans. We want to know what were the results. How have the results been for Jalen Hurts?
Well, I think, the first day was really bad from a percentage standpoint. And ever since then, it's been pretty good. All of this is contextual. I said, that day one when I was talking to you guys, I mean, it was all red zone work. So it was kind of unfair because it's all tight windows. It's all really difficult spaces to fit the football in. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, as you go on and some people like to count up, how many throws he has and how many completions he has. And I saw one at 70 something percent, which is, in theory, that sounds really good, especially when you're 52. But understand, if you're going to count 7-on-7 drills, you're supposed to complete those passes. You're supposed. The joke with Sam Bradford constantly, he was so accurate, the ball never hit the ground in 7-on-7s. I mean, that drill is designed for the offense. So all of this is added into it. I will just say there are times where he throws strikes, and usually that happens when he locks on receivers. He's very accurate, very strong arm. The problem is he can't lock on receivers in this league. When he tends to move his head and he goes from side to side on the field, that's when you see the inaccuracy kind of pop up.
John, one player I've been taking notice of that's been doing really well the first week is Steve Nelson, as he likes to be called. How has he been the first week?
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, you think about Monday, he was one of my guys, stock rising guys. I mean, he shows up on Monday. He's taken the first team reps on Wednesday, and he's been there pretty much the entire time. Craig James kind of rotates in occasionally, gets the first team rep here and there. He's been really physical. And the impressive part about that to me, they haven't put the pads on yet. And he's like beating people up out there. So, and I've said it, he's sort of like a domino effect in the fact that it enables you to put Avonte Maddox in his natural position, or at least what the Eagles perceived his natural position to be, slot corner. He obviously played outside in college at Pitt. But the point I'm trying to make about Avonte is we're 4 years in with Avonte Maddox. This is his 4th year. This is his contract year. He's never had a year where he just was able to sit in the slot and play there. He's had to play free safety. He's had to play outside corner. So I think if everybody stays healthy, that's going to help the defense. And I think it helps the young receivers because Slay and Nelson are just killing them. And it looks bad on the practice field, but, you're going to get better because you got 2 guys who are making things really, really difficult for them. And that's sort of where you get better. It's interesting. Nick Sirianni, we talk about competition. He grades every practice and he awards a winner, offense, defense. Defense is 4-0 unless you're great.
I was going to say, you haven't had an offensive winner yet. You haven't had an offensive day, have you?
Yeah, unless you're overgrading some individual work. When it comes to team drills, it's 4-0. It's 4-0.
That's pretty impressive from the defense. Is that the takeaway you should have if you're looking into eagle-colored glasses? Of course it is, but in honesty, Has the defense been that good every single day, or has the offense allowed the defense to dominate them and have major issues to work through?
Well, that's the question. I asked that question myself. I've been very impressed with this defense. I think they look much better than I expected. But is that because they're much better than I expected, or because the offense is that bad? That's sort of what you're trying to figure out. I will say days 1 and 3 were blowouts. 2 and 4 were a little bit closer. Yeah, I mean, they've been good. And part of it, the defensive line is really good. I think Josh Sweat has been the best player in camp, period. So you add the depth there. They love Milton Williams. They're going to be talented and deep on the defensive line. We thought corner was going to be the worst position on this team. It's looking like excellent. You know, you question the depth. You always worry about injuries. But if Slay and Nelson are out there, you're going to be set. And then you worry about the linebackers a little bit. But even Davion Taylor, he's another guy. Now, he sat out Saturday. And you know, Jody, I don't know if you heard me, Jeff, but I've been saying my theory was throw that kid in the deep end of the pool, see if he can play. And they're doing it. Now, he tweaked his quad and wasn't able to practice Saturday, but he's day-to-day, so it's not serious. And he's been pretty good. And he's so much more athletic than any other linebacker they have. You mentioned he hits 20 or 21 on the GPS, miles per hour, as a linebacker. Tyreek Hill hits 22. That's how fast he is. Now, again, there's more to it than that. There's football IQ. There's instincts. We'll see. But if you think about Anthony Barr, if you think about Eric Kendricks, if you think about Darius Leonard, they want athleticism on the field, and he's athletic.
So, John, this kind of brings me up to my next point, how good the cornerbacks have played. Outside Devonta Smith, is there any wide receivers that have stood up over the last couple of days?
No, and by the way, Devonta is getting beat up as well. I mean, that's, but I think that's good. I mean, there was one rep where Nelson just took him out of bounds, and they threw a flag, but I think it was meant to make Devonta feel better. So he's going to see some of this press coverage and some of this physicality. So that's where I say it's good that he's seeing it in camp. I think that's going to help him long term. It's interesting. The best receiver, I think, in camp has been Michael Walker, and that's not a good thing, obviously. I mean, he's just really quick, more of a slot receiver, good route runner. Everybody else, I mean, Jalen Reagor, obviously, you guys know the issues there. He's dealing with some personal things, and a close friend of his died, was actually murdered. So I don't think he was in the right headspace. He failed his conditioning test. So, I mean, they were counting on him to take a big leap forward in year 2. He finally got back into team drills on Saturday. So that was the first day. Everybody else has been similar to Eagles wide receivers, as you would think about Eagles wide receivers.
Yeah, which is not good, but it is very early in camp. You mentioned Davion Taylor and how he's playing. I've asked this to most of our guests here in the first couple of weeks. If one of last year's 2 mid-round draft picks were to step up, which one was going to be the one who was going to step in? And most everybody said K'Von Wallace, because he was in a bigger program, not a project-type player that he'd be able to step in and play. You're telling me Taylor's the one who's looking good, but also I've read and people have reported that Wallace has been pretty damn good too. So maybe both of those Howie Roseman draft picks can contribute to the team this year.
Yeah, I put Wallace in my story as well, but I had him more as a stagnant stock. He hasn't been bad. He's got more first-team reps than Marcus Epps, so that's a positive as far as, replacing Rodney McLeod in the short term. Obviously, the hope is Rodney will be there week 1. If not, most likely K'Von's gonna fill in. He hasn't made a lot of splash plays, but he hasn't made a lot of mistakes either, and that's not bad for a second-year player. I think he can hold down the fort. What I will say is Taylor's the classic boomer bust guy. I mean, he's got the much higher ceiling. I mean, the much higher ceiling if you're going to compare those two players. But nobody knows if he has the other stuff, and that's why they're trying to get him as many reps as possible. And hopefully he can get on the field quickly from this quad. But, you know, if you think about it, you start thinking about those soft tissue injuries. I mean, his whole game is predicated on speed. So he needs to be, you know, Doug Peterson would always call it the thoroughbreds. And those guys need to be 100% when it comes to hamstring, quad, groin, calf, or, you know, they're not going to be nearly as effective. So maybe that's a bigger concern than it is for, say, a savvy linebacker with a high football IQ. He needs to be at that top tier sort of physical ability. But I will say, if you're just talking purely ceiling, yeah, I mean, Davion's got a much higher ceiling.
John, I was trying to read between the lines a little bit Saturday when Nick spoke, and he had a lot of praise for Jordan Mailata. I mean, for a guy in a left tackle competition, he was trying to, I guess, I'm trying to think of the best word for it, lighten up Andre Dillard, you know, saying all the bumps and bruises, but Jordan Mailata, he had plenty of good things to say about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's funny to me because I know how GMs work, and it's more of, you know, I think Andre's going to get every opportunity to win this job. And I've said that pretty much, Jody knows, pretty consistently. But it's more about the GM than anything else. It seems like everybody outside the NovaCare complex wants to give the job to Jordan. I'm not sure that's where the Eagles are. I know everybody's focused on one-on-ones. I can tell. I've talked to Jeff Stoutland about this. He hates one-on-ones because, you know, I just talked about 7-on-7s. One-on-ones for offensive, defensive linemen, that's really difficult for the offensive linemen. That's, you know, it's sort of expected. So when people say Derek Barnett had a great rep against Andre Dillard, it doesn't mean that much to Jeff Stoutland. It's what I'm saying. The pads are supposed to come on Tuesday unless they change something. And that's also what Nick said. I mean, offensive line is one of those positions, probably the two, the other would be running back. You got to see the guys with the pads on. And if Andre performs well or it's even, they're going to default to Andre Dillard. So it's sort of like an old school heavyweight boxing match, and Andre's the champion, and George's got to knock him out, or he's got to beat him pretty badly if he's going to win this job. And then the second part, and this is kind of
Johnny, let me hop in there for a second. Andre Dillard's the champion. Why? I know he was drafted higher, but what they've done on the field during their time in the National Football League, Mailata's been the superior player. So is it purely because Howie Roseman used a first-round draft pick on Andre Dillard that you would say he's the champion and Mailata has to beat him?
I'm gonna answer this by asking if you saw Jordan Hicks' comments out in Arizona. I don't know if you saw them, but
I did.
After the Cardinals drafted a linebacker in the first round, Steve Heim called him up and said, there's no competition. He's going to be the starter. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I know how general managers are, and they default to their draft picks because, think about it, it's common sense. I mean, if they fail with too many draft picks, well, that looks badly on their record. And obviously, people joke that Howie can't get fired here because how close he can get fired. He fired Joe Banner. Joe Banner was as close to Jeffrey Lurie as anybody. So ultimately, they default, and it's not just Howie Roseman. It's every single general manager in this league defaults to its high draft picks. And what I mean by that is they give them opportunity after opportunity. And that's why I say you can win the job, but you have a very narrow path to win the job. And then the second part, Jody, I was going to say before is, and this is a little counterintuitive, but we know the NFL is that way at times. Jordan is a swing tackle, too. He can play the right side. So he shapes up better as a backup than Andre Dillard, who was a disaster on the right side is a natural left tackle. I'm not saying it's right, but I think they're going to give every opportunity to Andre Dillard to win that job. So, in other words, he can lose it, but he's got the easier path.
If Dillard does lose the job, though, do the Eagles move on? Do they try to trade him?
Yeah, it's possible. It's an offensive line deficient league. I mean, they are deep. I think they could try to trade Matt Pryor, somebody like that. Not, if you think about the Dennis Kelly trade, maybe that didn't work out. Obviously, they got Dorial Green Beckham, but everybody's looking for offensive linemen in this league always. And the Eagles have a lot of them. And they're going to have to cut NFL level players. And you might think Matt Pryor can't play, and he's probably not going to be able to make this roster. But Jeff, from covering this league as a whole, there ain't a lot of good offensive linemen in this league. And there are a lot of teams where Matt Pryor would be an upgrade for them. So that's one of the strengths of the Eagles. I mean, Suo Pettit, you're not going to get a lot. I'm talking late day 3 picks. But in the case of Andre Dillard, yeah, I mean, they could, somebody will look at that pedigree and say, remember during the draft process and how they graded him, and say, we can fix this guy. If they want to move him, they'll be able to move him.
All right, John, I want to move it into the backfield for you. All reports, yours included, other guys out there covering the Eagles, I've said the Eagles have looked pretty good out of the running back position, beat either guys running the ball and or catching the ball out of the backfield. It's not just been Miles Sanders and the guys behind him. A whole bunch of guys have flashed so far. How deep does the Eagle running back position look to you right now?
Yeah, it's pretty deep compared to where it was. Jordan Howard looks good. But that's one of those positions I said you got to wait for the pads to go on. It's interesting because Jordan, by the way, also is a physical runner, so that's not going to be an issue with him. I think the impressive part with him is that he looks like he's got a little juice, and even himself was questioning when he re-signed with the Eagles. He questioned, I thought I was done. He wasn't getting any interest. And there were people around this league who just thought he had no gas left in the tank. So he's impressed me. They clearly want to get this, what they call 21 speed, this package with Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell. They want to get that into the mix, at least on occasion. We'll see if that works out. Kenny's a rookie. He struggled a little bit with consistency. Huntley, this guy nobody talks about. He's the fastest guy they got. He is just lightning. He's faster than Miles, I think. But that he's got a tough numbers game facing him. Kerryon Johnson, I think that the questions about him are health related. So we have to kind of wait on that. And then Boston Scott is just a guy everybody forgets, and but he's just solid. He's not great, but he's somebody you can count on. So ultimately, that's a position with a lot of competition after Miles Sanders, and it's going to be interesting. Are they just going to default to the younger guys and move on from Jordan Howard, or are they going to sort of default to players they know that can do it, and that would be Howard and Kerryon Johnson if they're healthy and if they're capable of going?
John, there was one battle it kind of went overlooked going into camp, but the number 2 QB battle between Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins. And I talked to a couple people in the 49ers. They said that was a really good signing for the Eagles. And I actually liked Nick Mullins when he was out there. Your thoughts on that battle so far?
Yeah, I don't think it's a battle. Joe got significant money and promised that he's going to be the backup quarterback, and I think he's going to be the backup quarterback. I don't think either of them. Nick is coming off elbow surgery. I think I'm with you. I know Jody doesn't agree with us, Jeff. I think he's a capable backup quarterback in this league, but he did have elbow surgery, and he doesn't look like he's 100% back when it comes to arm strength, which was probably never his strength as a player to begin with. To me, it's going to be interesting. Do they keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53, or do they try to get Nick Mullins through waivers and or cut him and bring him back? I forget if he's vested or not. I forget how many years Nick has got, but if they try to get him on the practice squad, because now you have veterans on the practice squad because they're still going over the COVID rules. Now, the problem with that is if you try that route, you see what's going on in Minnesota,
right?
With these COVID protocols. They're essentially almost their whole quarterback room got shut down. So somebody like Nick Mullins might be plucked up pretty quickly if you don't give him a roster spot.
I was going to say, better chance. The Eagles have done this before, and this is pre-Howie and Howie, turning quarterbacks into some kind of asset, be it a late day 3 pick, as you described a couple other guys like the Eagle backup offensive lineman. It could be used as trade chips, not big trades, but the minor trades. Could Nick Mullins be a guy who, if the Eagles make him available, a team would say, hey, yeah, he's actually better than our backup. If we can get our backup quarterback for a 6 or a 7, why don't we go ahead and do it?
Yeah, I mean, if he plays well in the preseason, yeah, that could happen. But you also have to worry about that same situation happening to you. And I don't know if I want to go into a modern NFL season with only 2 quarterbacks. You have to have somebody on the practice squad. You might have to have 2 on the practice squad just in case. So I'm not sure they want to do that, but yeah, they could do it, especially if he plays well in the preseason.
Then let me ask you, John, who is that guy? You and I saw it the same way as we're going through the draft and the time after. Oh, they got to build. They got to have a practice squad quarterback. Who is he? If you don't think Mullins is going to get through waivers, and you can't put him on the practice squad, and oh, by the way, he'd have to choose you to be on your practice squad to begin with, which he may see better opportunities elsewhere and choose someone else. Who is this guy? When are they actually going to bring in somebody who looks like a practice squad quarterback?
Well, remember, everybody else is going to be paring down as well. So obviously they have, they'll have people, maybe they liked them in the draft, maybe they're younger quarterbacks. But the larger point there, Jody, and why I brought it up is I think they're keeping Nick on the 53. I think they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53 for that reason, because they're going to be concerned. And remember, I think people forget, the game day rosters, you got to have inactive players anyway. So they act like, oh, you need that roster spot. Really? No, you don't. They're not up on game days anyway. So I don't see the problem with keeping 3 quarterbacks. Now, if it is a young guy, if it is a more developmental prospect that you can get through waivers and there's not any concern over it, then yeah. But in Mullins' case, I just keep him on the back end of the roster.
And in defense of Nick Sirianni, when he was in Indianapolis, outside of the starting quarterback, they didn't really have much. Where it was Andrew Luck, or when JAKIB Sports was eventually the starter, they didn't have anybody. And this year they really don't have anybody with Nick Sirianni's not there. But after Carson Wentz, it's you could pick the Colts quarterback out of a hat.
Oh,
yeah, and
I was going to say, be careful. I'm a JAKIB Eason fan. I think JAKIB Eason could step in, play well, and all of a sudden, Carson Wentz with competition. Oh, my God, he loses his mind in Indianapolis.
Yeah. I think, the bigger thing with Indianapolis is the fact that Nick had to go through so many different quarterbacks over his years there, starting with Andrew Luck's sudden retirement and going to JAKIB Sports. That's one of the reasons he's here. And then Phillip Rivers, because you had these 3 different style quarterbacks, and the Colts offense was always at least competent, probably the low side with JAKIB Sports, up to really good at times. And a lot of people looked at that and said, it's pretty impressive that you can morph your offense around a different style quarterback and still put out a pretty good product each year. Whether it works or not, we'll see. And a lot of people said, why is Joe Flacco your backup quarterback when he's a completely different style quarterback than Jalen Hurts? And that's what Nick says. I mean, you just roll with the punches, and you work around what your quarterback on that particular game day does well.
John, last thing, and this is something I think we're going to be watching all year long. If the answer is one thing today, it could be different 2 weeks from now, could be different in season. Who's the defensive leader of this team? And I'm not talking about Gannon. I'm talking about on the field.
That's a good question. Typically, you think about middle linebacker and you think about safety. So when Rodney McLeod is healthy, it'll probably be him in the back seven. Until then, it'll probably be Anthony Harris. Linebacker is up in the air. I think a lot of people think about Eric Wilson. I mean, he's been on the second team, so I don't know how much he's been impressing. Now, he's taken plenty of first team reps, but they're rotating. I thought he'd be in there and never leave the field with the first team. That hasn't been the case. I do think he will call the defense if he's out there. Ultimately, I think he wins the job. So on the field, I would default to him. In the locker room, it's going to be, one of the defensive linemen, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, those guys. So, but on the field, it has to be the guy calling signals. And look, the Eagles have an issue at linebacker. There's no question about that.
Although they keep winning the day, according to Coach Nick Sirianni. Let's see if the offense can actually get a win today. JM, good stuff always. We'll get you up first thing in the show tomorrow. Head on down to camp. Thanks for getting on with us today. All
right. Thank you, guys.
Johnny Mac, John McMullen here with us on Birds 365. Jeff Kerr filling in for him as the host of the show. Come back. I'll chop it up with Jeff a little bit. We got our buddy Barrett Brooks to join us a little bit later in the show. We're rolling along as week 2 of training camp gets underway today here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Monday edition of Birds 365. Jody McDonald in with my partner for a good couple of weeks while training camp is running. Jeff Kerr joining me. Thanks to Johnny Mack for hopping on before he heads down to Eagle practice. And Jeff, it never fails every time I get a guest on. No sooner do we sign off with them that I check something that I wrote down on my notes for the show, and I go, damn it, I meant to ask that question. And I didn't to McMullen. So I'm going to ask you instead. Friday, and we did our show early on Friday, and I had practice on Friday. Little did we know that selected veterans, were going to get the day off. Excuse me? Didn't camp just start? They're giving guys days off already 3 days in? Really? I wanted to get John's take on that, so instead I'll get yours. I understand you're never going to get critiqued by the veterans that you're giving the day off to. It's too early in camp for the young guys to go, wait a minute, why are they getting days off? And we got to come out here and sweat in this 90-degree heat. So it's at least in your little circle of family of the team. It's not something you're going to have to worry about or get questioned on. But idiot members of the media like me, and maybe you, are going to sit here and go, well, wait a minute, you're already giving guys days off? Did that rub you the wrong way when you found out that a bunch of veterans were told, yeah, day 3 of practice, you guys don't have to work?
That was kind of a surprise so early because they're only in shells and shorts. I'm like, wait a minute, these guys are getting days off already, or guys hurt? And, I kind of like that he's doing this just because I think the Eagles have had so many injury issues the last 2 years, and it's clear Nick Sirianni really did some homework into this of all the injuries Eagles have had. If you go on Football Outsiders, I think they've been the most injured team in the league the last 2 years, if not the top 3. So I think Nick Sirianni is looking at it as, okay, let's avoid these soft tissue injuries that have been plaguing this football team for years. And how are we going to do that? Well, let's give Jason Kelsey a day here, or let's give Lane Johnson a day, Brandon Graham a day. And I think he's looking at it, it's going to benefit them in the long run. My concern is he going to be doing this early in the preseason too, when these guys need some of these game reps? And yeah, you know what? You guys have been through the grain before. You need a day off, or we're not going to play you that much in the preseason. That's what's a little concerning to me. I'm not concerned about the offensive line or defensive line, but what about the Anthony Harrises of the world or the Darius Slays, who I feel could use some actual game reps in that defense?
I agree with you. And the one thing that's good about Nick Sirianni being a first-time coach, there's a couple things, but there are also some downsides to him being a first-time coach. He's not set in his ways as per preseason. He was as a positional coach, but he's never been a head coach before. So if there was a certain way that you did it each and every single preseason and you got used to doing it that way, then you'd have to change. Well, there's no change involved here. This is first time for Nick Sirianni and the Eagles with him as their head coach. So whatever he decides to do, however he decides to do it, it won't be a change from something different. Might be different from what Doug used to do, but you're down to 3 preseason games as compared to 4. So there's going to be a change to begin with anyway. I will say this, and we talked about it probably more before the season started than we have since practice started. It seems like the guys are responding to Nick. It seems like they like him. It seems like they like the way he coaches. Now, that will certainly change as soon as the season starts. It will be dictated by wins and losses. If the team gets out 1-6, no matter how much they like Nick Sirianni, they're going to start to complain because they're 1-6, and you got to put the blame on somebody you don't want to put on yourself, so you put it on the coaches. The fact that right now all the guys like him is a good thing, but it certainly is subject to change, right?
Yeah, I wrote about this Saturday too. I thought, and I think Johnny McMullen actually asked him the question about him stopping practice on Saturday or Friday. He asked him at Saturday, and I loved how he did that. Look, they were not up to snuff, and Nick Sirianni said, enough is enough. We're not going to do this. And I love the reasoning for it. Well, what are you going to do in an NFL game and things get tough? You got to keep playing. You got to, finish strong. And, finish was his word of the weekend. It's, okay, how can we do this better? How can we do that better? Well, that's one thing I liked. He just stopped practice and said, guys, you can't be doing this. We're not going to win football games. And I think when you have a team that may not be as talented as your opponent, if you can outwork them, if you can out-hustle them, if you don't let stuff get to you, you're going to win games in the National Football League regardless of the talent level. And I think Nick Sirianni wanted to point that into these guys, say, hey, look, we're not this world-beating team. We're not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're not the Kansas City Chiefs. We're the Philadelphia Eagles. And to beat teams like this, who, by the way, we're going to play this year, you got to outwork them. You got to out-hustle them to have a chance. And that's one thing I really liked about what Sirianni did. And they responded to him. They could have said, hey, we're done. You know, it's Friday. We got a late practice on Saturday. We're not – no, these guys were bought in. And I think Nick loved the way they finished. And, you know, credit to him. That was his first true test of being a head coach, seeing if he can unite an entire 90-man roster. He was able to do that for 15 to 30 minutes.
And so far, so good when it comes to his relationship with his players. At least it seems that way from afar. All right, one of the things we touched on with Johnny Mac, I think you brought it up, and I was going to, about two-back sets, that the Eagles are actually running a bunch of plays like that in their practices so far. Doesn't mean they're going to use it a lot during the season, but they want to have it in their toolbox in case they go to it. Last year, for the Philadelphia Eagles, they had 3% of their plays with two backs on the field at the same time. 3% out of all of their snaps. So it would be a change if they added to it. This would be certainly something different Nick Sirianni does that Coach Peterson didn't. They've got a lot of guys who have looked good so far in camp at the backfield position. We don't know who's going to make the team, what kind of mix it's going to be. But is this something that we can pick up on, that it's Nick Sirianni's going to be different? He's not just standard follow the formula that coaches have done this in the National Football League before, that he's got some creativity and some different ways of thinking of things. Can we read this into the fact that at least early in their practices and workouts, they look like they want to do some things different offensively?
Yeah, and it's nice in theory. I mean, especially in, you know, the shells and shorts. I want to see him do it in pads, because I think McMullen said this, you know, with the pony offense. I remember that when Doug tried the two-back set. Yeah, it didn't work when they realized Donnell Pumphrey couldn't block, couldn't run, couldn't really do anything. So that plan was scrapped. I think they're a little bit deeper now, so I think Sirianni's looking to revisit this. And the Colts did a lot of this, you know, this two-back set. I don't know what they actually called it 21 speed in Indianapolis, but they had a guy that could do that in Nyheim Hines, and then you had the bell cow and Jonathan Taylor. The Eagles, they have a couple guys that could do that. Maybe Jordan Howard can be that bell cow back, or Miles Sanders can, quote unquote, be the bell cow back. We all know, because Doug never used him like that. But I think this is something the Eagles are going to explore, and I wouldn't give away too much of it in the preseason. I give it a look or two, and I kind of hide down the back pocket for week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons, because you don't want any of these teams kind of having a clue of what you're doing. And I always liked how, especially in the Doug era, the Eagles ran 10 to 15% of plays in the preseason. I think under Andy, it was more about 20, 25% because he wanted to get everything down. But with Nick, I would try to hide anything different from last year, anything you're trying to do. And you know the Eagles are going to run 11 personnel a lot. They're probably going to run some 12, and there's going to be a mix of 21 in there, which is awesome. But I would say that for the practice field or the closed practices, and see what you could do there. Because Miles Sanders and Boston Scott in the mix, Kerryon Johnson, you know, heck, even an Adrian Killins, guys like that, you can use that to your advantage.
Here's one thing that John and I disagree on, and you caught it when we had him on the air here. And I know his point of view, and certainly it's one that you can take. It's just one that I'm going to disagree with. The battle between Dillard and Mailata for left tackle. I get the fact that Howie Roseman not only used the first round pick, but traded up in the first round to get Andre Dillard. And when he's been on the field, he's not producing. Last year, of course, he missed all of last year with an injury. So that's an issue. You can't grade a guy if he's not in the game. But if you're not in the game, that's not a good thing. Here's where I disagree with John. I think Howie Roseman, although he's out to cover his own backside and make sure that the stamp that he's put on his team and the vision that he had in making selections and coming up with the roster as is certainly something he's going to be concerned about. He's got to work with everybody else. And Nick Sirianni is oftentimes thought of as a coach who was picked because he's as malleable as he is, because the general manager and the owner can get him in a room and say, listen, here's what we want, and do this, that, and the other thing. He's going to go, okay, you gave me the job. Sure, whatever you guys say. One guy on this roster, one guy on this entire coaching staff is not going to fall prey to that, and that's Jeff Stoutland. He's not going to listen out. How he's going to come in and tell, well, I don't think you're giving Dillard enough reps. He's going to go, Mr. Roseman, leave. Just get up, get out of my office. Don't come in here. I know what I'm doing when it comes to offensive linemen. You hired me to do the job. Now I'm going to do the job, so please leave me alone. I see that conversation happening. Maybe not with any other coach on the entire team, including the head coach, but I think Jeff Stoutland's going to tell Howie Roseman, I know who the better left tackle is. I'm going to make the call as to who's going to be the starter here. Sorry, you're the general manager. You want to fire me? And I think Stoutland would say that to him, too. You want to fire me? Go ahead and fire me. I think he would do that. I believe that the better player is going to get the left tackle position. It's not going to be decided by where someone was drafted, what their contract status is, how it's going to make the general manager look. I think Jeff Stoutland will dictate who the left tackle is. Yay or nay?
I agree with you. And honestly, if I was Nick Sirianni, I would take Jeff Stoutland to Howie Roseman's former office in the back corner of the NovaCare complex, lock the door and say, all right, you tell me. Right at the end of camp, who was the better player? And if he says Jordan Mailata, he's like, that's what I'm telling him, and that's what we're going with. And honestly, and you said it, Jody, it's a result-based business. And Jordan Mailata has shown results. Andre Dillard has not shown anything. And what scares me is it's not that Andre Dillard was a first-round pick. The Eagles traded up to get Andre Dillard and pry him away from the Houston Texans, who were going to draft him, and they had to sell on Titus Howard. So how many chances are they going to give Andre Dillard? And John's right. They're going to give him every opportunity to win this job away from Jordan Mailata. But from all accounts, from what I'm hearing, Jordan Mailata he's not lapping the field, but he's got a big car length advantage right now over Andre Dillard. And I know Stoutland doesn't like to, and I've heard this from McMullen too, the whole one-on-one thing. Yeah, I know Stoutland's not a fan of that. They want to see what they do with the pads on, but you have to be concerned a little bit if Josh Sweat's been one of the best players in camp and Jordan Mailata is handling him pretty well, while Derek Barnett is beating Andre Dillard in one-on-ones. I mean, I'm probably overreacting to this, but from all accounts, Jordan Mailata, I think he has a higher ceiling than Andre Dillard, and he was a 7th-round pick. Honestly, Jody, we got to look at it this way. If Jordan Mailata actually played 4 years of college football and did not play rugby, he probably would have been a first-round pick anyway.
Might have, and that's something that we'll never know. You made the point about one-on-one drills. Johnny talked about that too when he was on with us, that it's made to favor the offensive player, the defensive player or the offensive player. I get that, and I think his evaluation of his spot on. You're not comping the player against the player he's going up against. It's not the offensive guy against the defensive guy. It's how many times you get beat in comparison to the guy you're competing with on the offensive line. It's Mailata against Dillard. It's not Dillard against Sweat. It's not Dillard against Graham. It's not Mailata against Sweat. It's not Mailata against Graham. It's how many times one gets a win and the other one doesn't. So the comparison has got to be made correctly, and I have complete faith that Stoutland will do that. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's one of the best offensive line coaches in the National Football League. Here's what I think is going to be very interesting. You made an excellent point in that practice is practice. Give me results-oriented business, and practice results are only so much. They're going to play 3 preseason games. The first one, I expect Andre Dillard to start because John's got the right read there. Howie Roseman wants Andre Dillard to win it. So since the coach knows ahead of time, one's going to start game 1, the other's going to start game 2. Whichever one starts the first one isn't that big a deal. So I expect Dillard to start game 1 and then Mailata to come in for him afterwards. I expect Mailata to start game 2 and Dillard to come in for him afterwards. Real simple. May the best man win. If one sincerely plays the other, guess what? Week number 3, here's your reward. You don't get to play week number 3. You get to sit because a whole bunch of ones are going to sit because they're not going to want to risk injury. So if you lose the competition, guess what? You get to start week number 3. I think it's as simple as that. And it should be that it comes down to those 2 exhibition games, and the guy that does the better job should be the Eagles' left tackle when the season opens.
And I'll tell you what, Jody, I think it'll be very telling. And we still know how the preseason is going to play out with 3 preseason games. But whichever one of those 2 plays the 3rd preseason game, if they don't throw us a curveball and play both of them. But I'm expecting guys fighting for a roster spot to play that 3rd preseason game. It's going to be the new 4th preseason game, especially since it's on the road.
Right.
Another point I wanted to make is, and I know hasn't been practicing, but I would talk to 2 guys, Isaac Seumalo and Nate Herbig, because they're both playing left guard. And I would ask them, which one does better with slides? Which one covers the C gap better? Which one does this better? Basically, which one makes your job easier? Because it's a whole unit. It's not just the left tackle position. And if they say this player, I think that's going to go a lot into what Jeff Stoutland's going to think here. And the quarterback as well. I would ask Jalen Hurts and be like, hey, look, which one of these guys is making you throw the ball quicker? Which one of these guys is taking away the whole left side of the field for you because they're just not doing their job? Or, I'd ask, right? I would ask so many people. Basically, it's a whole thing. It's not just, are you getting beat by a defensive end? Like you said, Jody, you're facing off against your competition, not against Eric Barnett, not against Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, whoever. It's which one at their best helps this football team win games. And honestly, you got to go with Jordan Mailata at this point.
And interesting thing that John passed along to us is that the coach has a winner and a loser on the side of the ball every day after each practice. Offense, you're 0-4. Man, the defense has had the better of it so far in their practices. I think the Eagle defense has improved. I think the Steven Nelson signing is going to turn out to be pretty damn big. It frustrated a lot of Eagle fans because it took months to happen. People were calling for his signing like the day after he got released by Pittsburgh. Let's get him. It took a long time, but he got here before camp opened up. So tip of the cap to Howie Roseman. He seems to have handled that well and gotten Steven Nelson for his price rather than Steven, or don't call me Steven, call me Steve Nelson's price. Good for Howie Roseman on that front. But part of the issue is that, yes, the Eagle wide receiver room, while it may be crowded, is not uberly talented other than Devonta Smith. And oh, by the way, he's a rookie and has played like a rookie a little bit, and his veteran cornerbacks have made him work during practice. This is not good, Jeff, that none of the Eagle, quote unquote, other wide receivers, and I include Jalen Reagor in that, have stepped up to wow anybody so far, that it has been a major domination, and that wears off on the quarterback too. Jalen Hurts has got to wear that because everybody's evaluating Jalen Hurts. Well, he's not completing passes. His percentage is low. Maybe it's because his wide receivers can't get open at all, can't get any separation against their better defensive backs. When did you ever think we were going to say that? The Eagles' better defensive backs. Well, that's what it's been in practice so far. It's not a good look that the wide receivers so far in camp have not been able to get open, Jeff.
Yeah, not at all. And when you look at the high draft picks this team has wasted and the guys that they could have drafted, and, I know fans love to mention Justin Jefferson. They love to mention DK Metcalf. I mean, Justin Jefferson specifically, because he was one pick after. DK Metcalf was 7 after J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But the point still remains here. The Eagles' evaluation of talent at the wide receiver position is skeptical at best. I mean, Devonta Smith is probably the surest thing you're going to get to a good wide receiver. And I'm not even including him in the mess here. What concerns me is not one, like you said, Jay, not one person has stepped up. And we'll see. To me, I was banking on Jalen Reagor, and it's early. But I thought Travis Fulgham would be a little bit better than this. Maybe Travis Fulgham was a 5-game wonder, or just the guy that Carson Wentz threw to last year was because he was the only one who could catch a football for that football team. So that's what scares me a bit. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside doesn't look any better. I really don't think he's any good to begin with. And your boy, Greg Ward, I mean, I don't expect much out of Greg Ward anyway. Greg Ward catches the football, and he'll probably make this team because he can actually do what wide receivers can do, catch the football. And yeah, just no one is wowing you off the charts when undrafted rookie free agent is your best wide receiver early on in camp. Not exactly a great sign. And that's why there was so much love for Paul Turner. Remember Paul Turner 5 years ago? The fans loved Paul Turner because Paul Turner did everything no other wide receiver on this football team could do.
All right, last thing, and then we got to take a timeout. Hoping to get Barrett Brooks, our buddy up from the middle, to join us coming up in hour number 2. First, let's go quarter of the season. So first 4 games of the year. Percentage snaps, Greg Ward is on the field for the Eagles for the first 4 games.
You know what, Jody? I will shock you on this. I'll go 35%.
Yeah, you're shocking me, all right. How does 70 sound? I'll double what you're saying. Greg Ward will be on the field 70% of the snaps. Why? Because you're right. Greg Ward will catch the football. And I know he had an injury issue, so he missed a couple of days so far, but he did make a couple catches in their last practice last week on Saturday. Oh, he's going to play. The coaches are going to play him. And I know he's not the burner. He's not the great athlete. He's not the speed guy. He's one of the least receivers in the National Football League when it comes to average yards per catch. He catches the football. And Jalen Hurts is still a quarterback that they're trying to advance, that they're trying to move along. Having a guy that he knows he can throw the football and he's going to catch it is going to be big. I'm telling you. Don't worry about it. 70% of the snaps.
I want to see him on third down because I think he's a guy that can move the chains, honestly. On third down, 3rd and 5, I would go to Greg Ward just because you can throw him a low ball and he's going to catch it.
Yeah, he's going to catch plenty because I don't know what the hell they're going to get out of Jalen Reagor. And you're right, Travis Fulgham hasn't stepped up so far this year. Well, really, no one has out of the wide receiver group, but at least Greg Ward has done it before in regular season games. I'm telling you, he's still going to be a key factor for the Eagles receiving core this year. All right, we are Birds 365. It's Jeff Kerr in for John McMullen today with me, Jody Mack. Still got an hour to rock and roll. Barrett Brooks is going to join us talking Birds here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Ah, the savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
It is Birds 365, your Philadelphia Eagles get ready for the season show. We got a long way to go before we say that, but it's not really that long. It's now a month before they kick it off and get the season underway. We're into August, and yes, September will mean full-fledged National Football League action with your Philadelphia Eagles. Here to talk about them today, your buddies McDonald and Kerr hanging out, and Barrett Book's going to join us coming up less than 20 minutes from now. Jeff, I figured you tuned into this because certainly you've got a slant toward the Eagles that what you do for SI, but also you cover the entire league. Catch any of the NFL's welcome home, or what the hell did they call it again? I forget the exact.
Back Together Saturday or something like that. I forget what the
Back Together Saturday practices around the National Football League. They jump from camp to camp to camp to camp. I'll be 100% honest with you. I got caught up and got busy on Saturday, and it was the day after the trade deadline, so I was very much into baseball. I completely forgot it was on. Now they turn around and re-aired it on Sunday, and I go, I can catch up for everything that I missed out on Saturday. So I watched enough of it, but I did so on Sunday rather than Saturday. How do you think it went? Did it help to get you ready for a football season?
I mean, I was kind of ready for football season a month ago when I got back from vacation, so I didn't need to. But I thought from a fan perspective, I think I would have liked it. As a journalist, I'm like, this is a little too much for me. I watched NFL Live on ABC. I think it was on from like 3 to 6. I watched about an hour and a half of that, see how they were going from camp to camp. I totally forgot that's why the Eagles had practice as late as they did, because It was back together Saturday. But overall, I mean, if I'm looking at it from a fan perspective, I think they should do it again.
Yeah, I thought it was, you're right, over the top and a bit much. And even if I had tuned in for the start of it on Saturday, at some point I would have said, all right, enough. I definitely wanted to be there when the Eagles session was, because you got to see about your team. But do I really need to know about the Seattle Seahawks at this stage of the summer? No, I don't. I'll catch up with the Seahawks later. So there were certain parts of it that were above and beyond something I was interested in. Even if they had been, and I didn't catch this part of it, I'd been watching when they zeroed in on them, and I think they did all 32 teams. The Colts would not have had definitive information on Carson Wentz. They've been playing their cards really close to the vest, and they're still trying to, but some information leaked out yesterday. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know any Eagle fan worth his salt who wouldn't know by now, Carson Wentz got hurt this past week. Shockingly, Carson Wentz got hurt. Well, he did. He hurt his foot, and it is severe enough that surgery was being considered, that he might have to have surgery immediately. And if that were the case, it would certainly put the start of the season in peril for Carson Wentz as the Colts starting quarterback. It was reported yesterday that they've decided to pass on having surgery. They're going to go with rest and rehab to get Carson up to and ready for game number 1. It means he's probably not going to play in any preseason games. Good luck learning a new system. Yeah, I know. He and Frank Reich know each other. They work together. It is better for someone like that than someone who didn't work with the coach previously to try and start week number 1 without any preseason games under your belt. But this is an issue. This is a problem. This is Carson Wentz, and we should not be surprised by this here in Philadelphia. But we know it has ramifications for the Eagles, too. If Carson Wentz should come back and Shocko Shocks get hurt again, that would actually compromise and hurt the Eagles' draft status for this upcoming year, Jeff.
Well, this is what concerns me about them passing on surgery or delaying it. I call it delaying it.
Sure.
I would say to Carson, would you rather come back week 5, or would you rather come back week 10 or not come back at all? And if you're the Colts, I think you're as a whole, a roster, you're good enough to at least go to the AFC Championship game as a whole. But you have a glaring hole at the quarterback position. And I think you got to take the long-term view of this. Carson Wentz isn't just your quarterback for this year. He's your quarterback for the next 3-4 years, maybe even longer than that. And with a guy who, I don't like to use the term injury prone. I don't. I hate that term, but he does get hurt a lot. If I was them, and Frank Reich knows this, I would do what the Eagles did in 2016 with Carson Wentz when he broke the rib. Take your time. Let's get this thing fixed. I know this isn't a foot issue, but, let's get the surgery, and we'll see what we got with JAKIB Eason this preseason. And if he's not up to stuff, then we'll go get a veteran to hold us over for a couple weeks, and you'll be ready by the end of September, mid-October, and we'll go from there. But now when you're doing this, you're just delaying the inevitable at that point. I think he's going to have to get surgery if this thing is as serious as not what the Colts are saying, but what the league is saying.
They did sign Brett Hundley, a veteran who's been in the league a couple of years. Actually had a chance to start some games in Green Bay in a year that Aaron Rodgers was hurt. It didn't wow anybody, as a matter of fact. And I actually thought Brett Hundley was a good draft pick. I think the Packers took him in like the 4th round, somewhere thereabout. I thought he was actually a value pick when they ended up taking him. I've seen enough of Brett Hundley to know he's not an NFL quarterback. I kind of like JAKIB Eason. I did when he was at Washington. I liked where they took him in last year's draft. He got zero chance to show his wares last year because there was no preseason. He's going to get that chance. He's going to play in preseason this year, and I think he is the guy who will end up starting week 1 if Carson isn't ready to go by then. And I'm just waiting for it, Eagle fans. If JAKIB Eason looks good in preseason games, there will be some questions. Even in small, little, sleepy Indianapolis, the fans will be saying, well, maybe JAKIB Eason is better than Carson Wentz. Why are we going to Carson Wentz? Maybe we should just go forward with JAKIB Eason. Oh, it'll be an issue in Indianapolis. The question is, will it get into Carson Wentz's head? I'm sorry. I can't answer that question just unquestionably no. That Carson will be fine. That Carson is with his guru, Frank Reich, and all is well with the world. No, this injury opens up a door that the Colts didn't want to open up. The question of will Carson Wentz be able to mentally handle someone else playing quarterback other than himself? I'm telling you, it's problems for the Colts.
Yeah, and I want to bring a little bit of JAKIB Eason into perspective here. There was a reason why, and I'll bring this back to the Eagles, why they drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. It's because after Jalen Hurts, JAKIB Eason was probably the next best quarterback on the board. And if you waited till, I think the Eagles had, the 99th, 100th pick that year, you were basically waiting 50 picks for your opportunity to get Jalen Hurts. He wasn't going to be there. Jalen Hurts is going to get drafted probably a little higher than he should have because the back half of that quarterback draft wasn't great after Justin Herbert. It just wasn't. So I wanted to put that into perspective a bit. But it's not that JAKIB Eason's a bad quarterback. The Colts got him exactly where they should have in the 4th round. But you're right, Jody. If JAKIB Eason plays well in the preseason, and he gets a chance to start regular season games, and the Colts are good enough, they can win games. And it was funny. I talked to a couple guys at Sportsline who's affiliated with us at CBS. They did projected win totals and this and that. They did a bunch of simulations with Carson Wentz and with JAKIB Eason. The Colts' chance of making the playoff was 73% with Wentz. Not bad. 59% with Eason. I was kind of shocked by that because that means, okay, they don't actually need a really good quarterback to go to the playoffs. So if this team goes 10-7, 9-8, and makes the postseason with JAKIB Eason playing the majority of the games, you're right, Jody. There is going to be a controversy there. And we all know Carson don't like controversy. I know my colleague, Jonathan Jones, the senior NFL insider for CBS, I don't know if he was joking or not. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he said, you know what? Nick Foles knows Frank Reich's system, and we all know he ain't playing in Chicago, so let's bring him there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, John, I'm sure Carson Wentz would just love that opportunity.
I tweeted about that this weekend. I said, the one quarterback that is available or could be is possibly available, a veteran guy who may be able to hold down the fort until Carson Wentz comes back. And this was before they announced that he was going to not have the surgery and that he's hoping to be ready week 1. I was looking at it as if he was going to miss some games at the start of the season. The one guy I can guarantee you will not be quarterbacking the Indianapolis Colts is Nick Foles. Frank Reich is not opening up that door. That's not happening. He saw the aftermath here. He knows exactly what happens. I'm sure that he, too, has a warm spot in his heart for Nick Foles, but they've committed to Carson Wentz. They're not going to try and throw a monkey wrench into it by bringing in Nick Foles. No, that's not happening. They might have either just signed Brett Hundley or about to sign Brett Hundley. So they got their veteran guy. It's going to be the guys who are in the Colts camp right now who are going to be the quarterback if it's not Carson Wentz. Oh, it's not going to be Nick Foles. But do you think Foles does get traded? Do you think the Bears are going to be able to generate interest and move him before the season starts?
That $6.67 million salary is the biggest concern to me. Outside of Philadelphia, where do you go with Nick Foles? It's not like he's played bad per se. It's just it hasn't worked. Like in Jacksonville, he never really got an opportunity. They just kind of said, "Oh, Gardner, we paid you $50 million guaranteed, and this is what we get, even though the roster was terrible. So we're going to go with this Gardner Minshew guy who just dumps off passes. He doesn't really do much." There are just better options available that you don't have to pay that much outside of Nick Foles. Like Gardner Minshew is one of them, and Marcus Mariota, he may be. I hate to say it right now, he may be a better quarterback than Nick Foles. I don't think Vegas is actually going to move Marcus Mariota because John Gruden really likes him, but there are options out there. I think Foles could be on the move somewhere, but the Bears are going to have to eat his salary. I think that's going to be the main thing here, and I just don't think he's meant to be a number 3 quarterback sitting on the bench right now. There's going to be some team that needs a quarterback, some team where not a starter, but they're going to need a good backup quarterback. And there are a couple off the top of my head. I think the Seattle Seahawks could use a backup quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals, I think they could use. I think Los Angeles Rams could use a backup quarterback. God forbid anything happens to Matthew Stafford. There are teams that need a number 2 right now, and Nick Foles is as good as a one as you're going to find.
Understood. I asked John about this with the Eagles quarterback situation. Not that I'm opening the door for Nick Foles' return. I'm not, Eagle fans. Sweat not. Sorry, Nick Foles devotees. He's not coming back here. I just wondered about Nick Mullins and Joe Flacco. Mullins, to most observers' eyes, have outplayed Flacco to this point, but Flacco got the guaranteed deal, and how much that's going to play into it. I get it. Money is an important part of it, but can you carry 3 quarterbacks week in, week out on your 53 man? John thought it was very easy. The Bears going down that line, are they going to keep Nick Foles if no one offers them anything rather than cut him and let him be picked up by someone else for basically nothing? They just have to sign him to a veteran minimum deal. Do you think they'll keep him around and go with 3 quarterbacks on the roster if they can't get the deal that they want on the open market?
If they were smart, they would, and then just kind of wait it out, because the trade deadline's not before the start of the season. The trade deadline's in week 8, and if a quarterback needy team comes calling, you're the Bears, say, hey, we got a guy, he's inactive every week. Yeah, I think that's very possible, because you're not saving cap space by cutting Nick Foles at this point, not till next year. And that's what the Bears really got to focus into this. It's, okay, well, what happens if Andy Dalton gets hurt? Or Justin Fields gets hurt. I mean, they haven't yet, and they don't really have a history of getting injured, but it is possible. So I'm looking at it as 3 quarterbacks, having all 3 of them on your active roster isn't going to hurt us. And if you're the Bears, you got to really consider this. And if everything they say out in Chicago is true, and we know this in Philadelphia, how much of a teammate Nick Foles is, how much of a leader he can be, I think he's a good veteran mentor. I think he's a better veteran mentor than Andy Dalton for Justin Fields. I would keep him around until you get a price that – I mean, honestly, if the Bears can get a high day 3 draft pick for Nick Foles, I know that's really reaching here, you got to be doing circles around your office if you're Ryan Pace.
Agreed. Any kind of draft pick they get for Nick Foles at this point would be a win as far as I'm concerned. And the one guy we haven't talked about over the last half hour at the quarterback position is Jalen Hurts. And I think it's borderline funny that I wouldn't have any problem or any concerns with who the Eagles' backup quarterback is with Jalen Hurts. Because I truly believe Jalen Hurts is mentally capable of dealing with competition, that nothing is a given, that I'm going to go out and I'm going to have to win the job each and every single week of the season. Not the fact that it's handed to me and I expect it. A lot of the league talk about Aaron Rodgers. Not only does he want to be the quarterback, he wants to be the general manager too. Jalen Hurts has got none of that going on. He just wants to be able to get out there on the field, compete for his job, and do the best that he can. I think it's a refreshing change after what we went through with Carson Wentz here this past year. All right, Jody Mack, Jeff Kerr, your Birds 365 guys. We're hoping to hear from Barrett Brooks. You know him from the middle here on Birds on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and also on NBC Sports Philadelphia, their Eagles insider. He's going to be our insider coming up shortly here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
We are Birds 365. We would be me, Jody McDonald, along with Jeff Kerr, filling in for John McMullen. If you missed Johnny Mack, fear not. We'll certainly be posting this when it's over and done with. You go back and catch John McMullen's report. He joined us right at the top of the show today, and will probably be doing so for the next couple of weeks. The Eagles haven't scheduled out their practice past this week coming up, so we don't exactly know when the coach is going to be available or how early the media guys are going to need to be down there to get all the information that they can from the important participants. Yeah, certainly Nick Sirianni is one of them. So John may be hopping on at the beginnings of our show, at least for the rest of this week. We'll see about the weeks going forward with training camp. But Coach Sirianni has been keeping track as to who wins the day down at practice, Jeff. And Johnny Mack told us he admitted it's a 4-0 count so far on the scoreboard, defense over offense. You can look at that one of two ways. If you're an Eagle fan, you can put on your Eagle-colored glasses and say, oh, our defense is going to be so good. The huge addition of Steve Nelson. Damn, it's those guys coming together as a this Gannon guy's going to be great as a defensive coordinator. Or you could look at it and go, man, our offense stinks. Our defense is only okay at best, and they're getting dominated on a day-in, day-out basis in practice. Man, are we going to score any points this year? I know those are the two polar opposites, and I'm gilding the lily on both ends a little bit. But the bottom line is, I think the head coach is being honest. His defense has been better to this point. Give me the glass half empty, glass half full look at it from you, Jeff Carr.
Well, here's the thing, Jody. The defense could be really good, but they probably won't look at the first couple of weeks of the season because of the offenses they're playing. Kansas City and Tampa Bay, Dallas, I'm looking at you. So I think it's going to be, how can I put it? I don't want to go glass half empty, glass half full, but I think this defense can be top 10, top 15. I think they have enough talent on that side of the ball. I think the secondary is going to be significantly improved because, as John mentioned earlier, Steven Nelson on the outside playing boundary. All of a sudden, you got Avonte Maddox in the slot. Now you have depth at cornerback because you have Zach McPherson back there too, who can provide a couple looks in there and 5 defensive back sets if you choose to go with him in that route. The offense is my biggest concern here. I'll go glass half empty there because I think the backs are going to be fine. I think you're going to rely on them a lot. I actually think the quarterback's going to be fine. It's the wide receivers that scare the heck out of me. And when you get Zach Ertz, this is why I say you got to keep Zach Ertz because I don't know what they have in Travis Fulgham. I really don't. I know what they have in 5 games from him. But outside of that, he was terrible. And I like to be nice to the guy because I do think there's potential there. I will say that for a 6th-round pick you got off the waiver wire, I think there's potential. But Jalen Reagor, he's battling something right now. He's got this mental health issue thing going on, and rightfully so. I don't think I would be in the right state of mind if, I lost a close friend to the murder either. So I could see it there, and he's got time. And that's the guy they really got to bank on this year because this is the guy I thought that, at least in my opinion, not that he could have been a number 1 receiver, but I thought he was going to be a home run threat, and he still can be. And I think Jalen Hurts gets the ball to him really well. I thought Jalen Reagor played significantly better in the games Jalen Hurts was his quarterback than in any game he was with Carson Wentz outside of week 1 when he caught the 55-yard pass. So if Jalen Reagor and Travis Fulgham can be competent, I'll feel a lot better about this wide receiver group than I would right now.
You were the first one to reference Zach Ertz today. Surprisingly, we're an hour and 20 minutes of the show and hadn't brought up Zach Ertz yet. I meant to bring him up with Johnny Mack. We had him on and we didn't get there either. Checking people's reports and what they've noticed and how they viewed Zach Ertz so far. I think a fair word would be disconnected, that he's there, that he's practicing, that he's out there on the field with his team, but he doesn't look overly excited. I know on Friday we made a big deal, or somebody made a big deal about the fact that he wore his shorts inside out so that you couldn't see that they said Eagles. I think that was a little bit too much reading between the lines, but he hasn't exactly been at the top of his game. Oh, there he is, Barrett Brooks. Good enough to hop aboard with us. Barrett, I was just saying to Jeff, and I'll get both you guys' takes on it. If you agree that Zach Ertz to this point has been a little distant. He's not one of the guys. He's not in there high-fiving anybody or chest bumping anybody, but he's going about his business because he's a professional and he's supposed to be there and he's not getting fined, and at least he's happy about that. Barrett, how much of an issue is this? Is this something that's going to peter out, that the further they get down the road, that Zach Ertz is going to realize, hey, I could be here all year. I better get involved. I better get to be part of this team and invested in it? Or do you think this is going to continue up until the day he's no longer an Eagle?
You know what? Strictly from a monetary perspective, of course he's going to love being here because he's going to make more money than he'll make anywhere else. But it's not all about money sometimes. But in Zach Ertz's case, I think it is about the money. That's why he wanted the new contract, and he wanted a little more of a sense that, all right, you guys want me here. But since they didn't go through with it, it's kind of like those 3 monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. They're not going to say anything about it. And that's exactly what it is. Zach Ertz is a professional. He understands what he brings. He's an asset. And his coaching staff understand he's an asset also. It's just the people upstairs in the organization don't want to pay that asset going into the future because they feel as though they have somebody else that can, take over at that spot. But, at the end of the day, they can run a lot of different personnel packages with him being on the field. He's still a threat. Teams still will game plan for him, and he understands how to play this game. So he's going to be okay. He's going to be good for this offense. He's going to be good for this young quarterback, especially. That's one thing that I've seen about Jalen at this point. He likes to hold the ball a little bit. He needs to get better with his pre-snap. And until he does that, he's going to need a guy like Zach Ertz who understands how to get open, because we have young receivers, but, we have veteran tight ends. And he's one of those guys that can get open. And when the ball gets to him, he'll be in a position to help that young quarterback out.
I kind of look at this too, like Xavier Howard in Miami. He wants a new contract or more guaranteed money, and I got to give Xavier Howard a lot of credit. He did not have to do this Saturday, but he went out and spoke to the media when the Dolphins asked him to, and he was probably as professional can be. Look, I'm not here because of my contract situation. I am here because I love my teammates. There's no riff with Brian Jones. There's really no riff with Brian Flores. This is up to the Miami Dolphins to get this thing right, or I don't want to be here. And he's done all the right things. He said all the right things. He said, there's no injury. I'm practicing today. They're just taking care of me. And, he's doing everything he needs to stay in Miami. And I love that approach by Xavier Howard. The only disagreement he had was, well, no, Brian Flores and I didn't speak today. We spoke yesterday. So I don't know where he's getting that from.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You have to be a pro about this whole situation. If Zach Ertz went somewhere else, he'd probably be making a little over the league minimum, probably around about $3 million. He stays here, he's going to get $7.8 million. He stands to make a lot more money here right now, so he's going to be here. But like I said, Coach Nick Sirianni, he understands that he still has a weapon in Zach Ertz, and he showed it in practice last week when I watched practice on Saturday. He had a long bomb in which he beat the DB. And he beat a DB, the slot receiver, slot defender, and took it for a touchdown.
Good for Zach Ertz. Glad to hear that. All right, Barrett, where we need your expertise more than anywhere else is, of course, on the offensive line. We were talking about this earlier. McMullen and I see this a little bit differently. Jeff's kind of in the middle on this one. Starting left tackle. I say that the offensive line coach, Mr. Stoutland, is going to rue the day. That he's going to be the one who's going to decide who the left tackle is, who's winning that competition, who should start week one. John kind of leans toward, you realize Howie Roseman used a first-round pick on this guy, and they're going to bend over backwards to give him every chance to win the job. You've had a chance to get some looks at practice so far. Give us your read on the left tackle competition, where it sits right now and where you think it's going.
Well, I was surprised. I think both of you guys are wrong on this.
Really?
It's not Nick Stoutland. I don't think it's Howie Roseman either. I really think that if you look at it, Jordan Mailata is winning this battle. He's played better. He's done more things. He looks more polished as an offensive tackle. He looks better. He's playing better. Period. Point blank. At this point, Dillard is having a rough practice. He's having a rough camp. And he's not playing nearly as good as I thought he was going to play. But it might be just because Jordan Mailata is just playing a lot better than he is. And I'm not saying Jordan Mailata is blowing anybody out of the water, but he just looks more of a polished offensive tackle. He can protect the blind side of whoever the quarterback is. And that alone is going to allow him to play. He's just a better player. Dillard is just he's not playing. He's not playing strong enough. Not to say he's playing like he's soft, but he's not playing strong enough to be starting left tackle. And when you have somebody 6'8", 380 pounds, who's now getting it and understands what it is to be an offensive lineman in the NFL now, he is playing a lot better. He has a lot more force behind his blocks. He's a lot more. You can see the intention of what he's doing now is NFL caliber. His intentions are, I'm going to be here as a starter. Now, he still smiles too much for me. He's still too happy for me. He's still the nicest guy in the world. But when he puts his hands on people, they know they're caught. They know that they're getting pushed around. Dillard is not that point. Even though he's a technician, he just doesn't play strong enough or stout enough to be that starting left tackle. So I think it's more so those two are the way they're playing is going to determine who's going to be the starter. And I think Jordan Mailata is stepping up a lot more than Andre Dillard.
Now, Barrett, this may be a little unorthodox here, but I was talking to Dalton Reiser last week, and I was asking him about how much Garrett Bowles has improved in Denver. And he said, Jeff, as a left guard, you can really tell who the better left tackle is in a camp competition based on slide protections and where they can protect the gap and how the quarterback's reacting. Do you think the Eagles should maybe – I know he hasn't practiced, but maybe they should ask, Nate Herbig, Isaac Seumalo, see which one is kind of the better left tackle at this point?
I don't think necessarily that, you'd even get a real answer out of them. They wouldn't, they're talking about one of their teammates. What you will see is what you just explained. You'll see the way the protection is sent. You'll see how and what type of protections, how they're trying to take advantage of the defense. And a lot of the times you try to cover up from the weak offensive lineman. There's no weak offensive lineman when Jordan Mailata's in the game. They can run whatever they want to run. They can run, with a purpose of trying to take advantage of something, not to keep them from being taken advantage of. You can run a play to take advantage of what the defense is, or who's the lesser of the defensive ends as far as run blocking potential and pass blocking potential. But you can also run plays to hide an offensive tackle too. And they're not running plays to hide him when Jordan Mailata's out there. They can run plays specific for seeing how to take apart a defense. I don't know if you could do that with Dillard. They would have to send help his way. They would have to slide the line that way. So, the coaching staff, you'll see what the coaching staff is running, in these games to really give you an accurate barometer. Not who's starting, but what plays they're calling to show you what and who is going to be the guy that's going to be starting come Sunday.
Barrett, let me tap into your offensive line insight to talk about the defensive line. Barrett Brooks, at the top of his game, who would you have a harder time with these days, Josh Sweat or Derek Barnett?
At this point, Josh Sweat is becoming a player, a really good player. He showed a one-hand stab against Dillard, and Dillard couldn't recover from it. And this is during the not the individual drills. This wasn't one-on-ones. This was during when they're trying to run plays, and he just totally just bulldozed Dillard on the play. Now they couldn't even finish the play out, and he is really refining who he is as a defensive end. He's going to be a guy who's going to make a lot of reps, and you're going to see a lot of this going on because he's definitely playing at a high level. I love that. I love his sack dance. When he throws the sweat off of him. Well, you're going to see a lot of that. He had an impressive camp, and it started last year. He started playing better and better, and now you can see the confidence in it. He still has a little bit of a limp in that knee. You can tell the knee still bothers him. But it still doesn't change the fact he's become a lot more explosive, getting off the ball, explosive with his hands. His intention is to get to the quarterback, and he's doing that very, very well right now. So I love the way this kid is playing. I think he's playing, on the same level as Barnett. Now, Barnett's, a little more crafty just because, he's a little more healthier. But as far as production, Sweat's going to have a lot of production in this coming season.
It seems like Milton Williams, too, is really polished for a rookie third-round pick. I know.
Quick. Oh, my God. Yep.
Yeah.
He's getting off the line, man. He's looking really good, man. I'm glad you brought him up because during one-on-ones, he just showed his versatility. He did both rush. He beat the guard off quickness. Then he went right back in and beat him with power, a bull rush, beat him with power. Now, all this stuff looks well with no pads on because I haven't seen him in pads. But right now, those two are looking really, really good on the defensive line.
Barrett, early on, first week of practice, the Eagles had a practice that lasted less than an hour and a half. As a guy who was in the league when they actually practiced, what did you say when you found out they had a 75-minute practice?
I immediately thought that I could still be playing now. I got drafted in 95. What I'd be going into.
You could go for 75, right, Barrett?
Oh, my goodness. I'd be going into year 21, 22, 23, if I only had an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes for practice. Yeah, it was shocking to me because when the horn blew up and they called him up, I started looking around like, this can't be the end of practice. I mean, it's to the point now that you can't be late for practice, because if you do, you might miss practice. So, you know, I mean, it's the CBA. I understand it's not, because I can remember when my first camp, we were in Lehigh, and you know, no, we were in Westchester. I'm sorry, Westchester. I was in Westchester my first camp, and I can remember, you know, we had 2 practices. The first practice was 3 hours. The second practice was 2.5 hours. Full pads, and you would get in shape that way. If you don't come in shape now, you're not going to get in shape, because at this point, you don't do enough to really get your body in football shape. I don't know how they're going to play. And they did it last year. They've shown that they can do it, man, but I don't see how they're playing and going full speed when you're not getting the reps to get your body used to being hit, used to, you know, going full speed. Those are all things. You can run around all day. You can do all kind of drills all day, but until you start hitting and moving a 400-pound person that's in front of you in pads, you never get a sense on if you're ready to do that. I don't see how they're going to do it, but hey, you know, they proved that they could do it. They did it last year and the year before, so we'll see how they look going into the season.
Tell you what, Barrett, I've never seen this before, and when I was a kid, I went to Eagles training camp all the time. I was at Lehigh, and I never saw Andy Reid stop a practice. I would go to both practices. From what I know, Chip Kelly has never done this, and I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So when Nick Sirianni did that, it was like thinking to yourself.
Well, I started looking around like, did I miss? I came late or something? What's going on? I mean, is this practice really over? And a lot of the riders looked at me like, well, yeah, well, I guess it is over. But, you know, it's the new wave. You know, this is new coaching staff. And I will tell you this. There is a lot of enthusiasm. Nobody walks around. They're full speed reps. And when they're going, they're going. They're going hard and they're going fast. And you can tell the intensity of what's going on in practice. You know, it's very intense. They're coaching every guy. And I love that aspect of this coaching staff. They're coaching each and every guy, not just the veteran players who are going to be playing, but even the young players. Each coach is grabbing their guys, and after each play, he's telling. Even Stoutland's changing his coaching style a little bit. He's always been an aggressive coach, but he's even a little more aggressive. You know, but you can tell that these guys are going 100%. They're going fast. There's an intensity in the practice. There's an enthusiasm in the practice. I love that aspect of it. You know, everything is what you want from a team, and understanding and buying into what the coaching staff wants them to do, and they're doing it.
Barrett, last one. You just talked about the coaching staff. Let me take it a step further about Coach Gannon, your defensive coordinator. He's starting to let little things out in his media sessions. He's not going to give you his full game plan, that's for sure, but he's being as forthright as he can be. They're going to do things differently than they did under Jim Schwartz here, and they're going to do things that are going to try and catch the other team off guard, that he believes deception and keeping things under wraps is a way that you can cause some of those turnovers that he seems to be striving for. He's talking a good game. Are you seeing that out in the field when you've been in practice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do see it. He's mixing up coverages. And I'm telling you, a lot of the veteran players are going and getting more work than the younger players. I mean, you have guys like Nelson and you know, guys like Slay that are doing work after practice, going and grabbing Gannon after practice, and they go through stuff. You know, their DB coach, they go through stuff. And you could see the nature of how they're trying to, you know, create turnovers. Every single play, they're trying to knock the ball out. They're trying to make sure they go out and be physical with the play. They're using their technique. And if the coach says inside out, they're tackling inside out, waiting for reinforcements to come. You know, I can't see the blitzing stuff. I've seen the blitzing, but, you know, I do think they're going to blitz a lot because, you know, he's one of those guys, he wants to be very aggressive. You can tell the way the DBs are, they're being very, very aggressive. They're trying to punch balls out. You know, there's an intent, a definite intent to create turnovers. Even in practice, I watched on Saturday, they knocked the ball out, you know, during practice out of the quarterback's hand. Usually, you know, you can't do that, but I mean, they went with the pass rush, knocked the ball out of the quarterback's hand, and they didn't blow the whistle and stop. They let them go get it too, you know. So that's the intensity that Gannon is giving this team. You can see the intensity of his defense, and that's going to be huge. That's going to be big for this defense. Turnovers is something that they're working at every single play, from the DBs to the D-line and definitely with the linebackers.
Barrett, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on. The only downside of doing this YouTube thing is you can't actually give Eitan Shander a forearm shiver. So give it to him verbally today. On the
I was going to give him a one-hand stab with it, you know, pass rush move or maybe a swim move a little bit, but I'll try to get him going.
Please do that for us. Barrett.
Yep. There we go, man. Well, hey, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Barrett, no, thank you. Appreciate you hopping on with us. Barrett Brooks, you'll catch him on the middle coming up a couple hours down the road here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Speaking of JAKIB Media, the big boss, Joe Kraus, is going to hop in for me. He's going to take you home with Jeff Kerr. So you got JK and JK. Usually it's JM and JM, but the last 20 minutes today is going to be JK and JK. So you want to keep it right here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Birds 365 with Jody Mack and John McMullen. In for Jody Mack, Joe Kraus bringing you home on this Monday. Jeff Kerr, national CBS correspondent, in for John McMullen during what will be 18 days of training camp down at the NovaCare Complex. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Jeff, again, thanks for kicking off the week and being here with Jody Mack. I'm going to ask you to take off your hat as co-host of Birds 365 and finish up this show with you as an analyst so I can get some of your perspective looking through your lens on how you're going to evaluate week one and now going into what is week 2, day number 5 of camp. A lot of stories surfaced as we expected out of week number 1. Let's begin there. Your overall assessment with week 1 in the books, Jeff?
Well, defense has definitely ruled the day, Joe. I will say that. It's, John McMullen was spot on. 4-0. That 4-0 with Nick Sirianni preaches competition, keeps score. The defense has won every day, and I don't know if it's because the Eagles' defense is better than the offense, which, I mean, they obviously are right now, but I don't know if that's because the offense is bad or if the defense is that good but, man, it looks like they had a home run with the Steven Nelson signing through 4 days here. That was the move I think they needed to be a top 10 defense.
I want to ask you to comment about the pace of practice in camp so far. As John McMullen reported on Saturday, and I think he reported it again this morning on Birds 365 when you talked to him to kick off the show, they go to pads tomorrow, and assuming that holds true, the team will be in pads tomorrow. But the comments coming out of week 1 have been words like physical, intense, high energy. What are your thoughts about that? Dare I say, or dare I compare, or dare I reminisce about Chip Kelly?
I would go more Andy Reid, honestly. Remember his first training camp in 1999? That was very physical. And if you weren't up to snuff, a.k.a. George Hageman, he cut you. And we saw how soft of a player George Hageman was when he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Hugh Douglas just went right by him and sacked Sean King in a playoff game. So I think you got to be tough to play for this man. I think you got to be physically tough. I think you got to be mentally tough. And if you're not, I think I don't want to say he'll be your buddy. He's not going to coddle you, but he's going to make sure that you're at that level. And I think that's why Jalen Reagor has been sitting out. He said, hey, look, if you're not in the mood to go through this right now, we want you at 100% thinking about this. So I'm looking at it as, look, I want you guys going 100% all the time. I don't think that's a Chip Kelly thing. I think it's a mixture of, I want a tough football team who I don't think has the talent of the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they don't, but we can win this division. We can make the playoffs if we play hard every single play and if we can outwork our opponent. And there is nothing wrong with the coach thinking that until you get those guys, because I think this team is bought into what he's doing so far.
We'll we'll hear from head coach Nick Sirianni a little bit later on today. They did some schedule adjustment where Nick Sirianni spoke to the media before practice today. So that's a change. Whether or not that stays for the remaining days in training camp, John McMullen, of course, will keep us up to speed. What do you make of him, Jeff? Here's a receivers coach. Here's a guy who's never been the head coach. Here's a guy that comes in under tremendous scrutiny about why he's here and what he will do or how he will manage. Howie Roseman, the owner, Jeff Lurie, the expectations of the fan base in this town, a quarterback situation with Jalen Hurts. He certainly has been dealt a lot of crap up front. What do you make of how he's handled himself in the opening week?
Well, I will say this, Joe. The coaches are going to speak before practice for the rest of the week when I got the schedule. So, yeah, so we're going to have McMullen on a little bit earlier, I guess, all week. But I will say this with Nick Sirianni. I like the hands-on approach. I think it's more the new wave of coaches. They're more detailed. They're more involved. And I don't want to go he's anti-Doug because I don't think he's anti-Doug, but I think he's more of I'm vested. I'm interested. And it's not just the starters. It's everybody. I want to make sure I'm getting the most out of every single player on this roster and every single coach on this roster. I mean, Barrett Brooks said it best. Jeff Stoutland has changed the way he coaches. He's always been aggressive. He's even more aggressive now. So you could tell Nick Sirianni had a meeting with these coaches over the last 6 weeks and said, hey, guys, this is what we're going to do here. We are going to attack. And I know he loves using that word. And we're going to get 1% better every day. And I think he truly means what he says. And look, we're going to be as detailed as we can with all these guys. Jamal Singleton with the running backs. Brian Johnson with the quarterbacks, Jeff Stout with the offensive line, guys like that. I think it's going to be one of those. Look, you're a coach on my football team. We want this team to be as best prepared as they can, not just for a game, for practice, for the meeting room, for lunch, to show up to work. That's one thing I like about this guy. His attention to detail is so deep. And again, I've said this before, Nick Sirianni, you asked him about his wife and his kids, I think he would stutter. But if you ask him about football, this guy can just talk your ear off.
Jeff, let me ask you to drill down a little bit deeper and just to help us understand, perhaps visualize or even jog our memory a little bit back to the Doug Peterson era, the Super Bowl winning head coach, Doug Peterson. What is the difference, or what was Doug's practice like in camp compared to this high energy, hands-on approach by a new head coach, Nick Sirianni?
I think Doug was more of a laid-back type of guy. Like his first year with the Eagles, they did have tough practices. That was my first year actually covering the team. And I remember specifically, he was the anti-chip. He really was. It was not my way or the highway. It's like, okay, you're not feeling it today, fine. If you're over 30 years old, I'll take care of it. That's one thing Nick Sirianni kept, even though he's doing a little bit early. But Doug listened to his players a lot, and he got a lot of intel from his guys. And he wasn't the guy to really care about the preseason as much, as well as getting them ready. And I think sometimes his practices were a little too tough in that his players got hurt. I think the difference is Nick Sirianni goes, okay, you guys need the day off because I think long-term this is better for our football team. And Doug did a lot of unorthodox things his first couple years. And truthfully, Joe, I think toward the end, I think just last year was too much for him. He got COVID, and I think that took a while for him to recover. And then I think the whole Carson Wentz thing just blindsided him out of nowhere, because all of a sudden this guy's worried about his backup quarterback, and this guy's starting to not play well. And that threw a wrench into Doug's plans. I think Doug was thinking, okay, Carson's good enough where we could get to the playoffs with him playing the way he played from 17 to 19. And he wasn't that 81 touchdown, 21 interception guy. And I just think that took so much out of him, and the whole COVID protocols. And I mean, Lane Johnson said it best. The best part about this year is I don't have to go eat lunch by myself in the car anymore. I don't have to do things by myself anymore. I get to be with the guys. And I think Doug really wanted to be with the guys. I just think last year just took so much out of that guy that I'm not going to pursue an offensive coordinator job this year. He had a chance for the Seattle Seahawks job. I know Pete Carroll really wanted him. And I think Doug said, thanks, but no thanks. I'm just going to take a year off and kind of recharge the batteries. And I fully expect him back doing what he loves in 2022 somewhere. But Nick Sirianni, man, he is his first time as a head coach. I think he loves the opportunity the Eagles gave him. And, we talk about this a lot, Joe. Whenever you get an opportunity, you got to present it to the best of your ability. And Nick Sirianni is clearly doing that. It's not unorthodox. This is what the younger coaches are doing. They're more involved. I mean, honestly, Jason Pierce on this roster, Nick Sirianni would be younger than him. That's just the reality of the situation right now. And I think in his late 30s, Nick Sirianni can relate to a lot of these young players because he wasn't that far removed from being one himself.
Of course, Doug, you can add to the description of Doug Peterson. He'll also take the check that he'll receive from the Philadelphia Eagles while he looks ahead to 2022. By the way, the fans will get their first look at this football team. Open practice coming up on Sunday of this week, the first of two. So that will be exciting, of course, across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We'll have all kind of live cut-ins and our daily camp recap with John McMullen. We'll have that for you. Our wall-to-wall coverage on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel continues all the way through, leading up to what will be the opener for the season on September 12th. I want to stay with the Nick Sirianni, only I want to speak with you or ask you now, Jeff, in the context of competition going into tomorrow. So if tomorrow is the first day that the pads go on and the first 5 days of camp without the pads have been physical, have been aggressive, what do you expect the first day with pads on to be like tomorrow?
I'll relate this to when I played under my high school football coach, David Dolas. I knew him really well from, I was, his water boy going up and all that stuff. I knew how physical his practices were, but we were in helmets and shells and, just pads, and we were bring it in, and it was physical, and we're just like, okay, what's it going to be like when the pads come on? Like you said, Joe, I'll tell you what, you better bring it that first practice or you're going to get destroyed. Like physically, mentally, you're going to get bruised. It's going to be a long week for you. And so if I'm, Derek Barnett, Josh Sweat, for example, I'm coming after that offensive line as hard as I can because they're not going to pull any punches back. It's going to be brutal for them. And I really feel Nick Sirianni is going to treat this like a game because it is a competition. It's an advanced rock, paper, scissors, if you will, Joe. It's, we want to win the day. You're the offense. You want to beat the defense. That's your opponent for the day. And your defense, you want to destroy the offense. That's your opponent for the day. And I think these guys are really going to bring it. And I think Nick Sirianni is going to be vocal. And I think when they get in that meeting room and Nick tells them who won the practice, I think you're going to see a little rah-rah, from whoever won the day. And I think it's going to be like that for a couple hours, each day with these short practices. And I think it's going to really help this football team going forward because they're going to be sick of each other by next Tuesday, next Wednesday. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be glad that I had a week of actual preseason football against another opponent because I feel like the Eagles are going to want to take it out on somebody.
Jeff Kerr giving us expert opinion on Birds 365, also filling in all week for John McMullen, doing a great job with Jody Mack. They'll be back tomorrow right here on Birds 365. I don't want to be repetitive, and I apologize if I'm asking a question that you may have covered earlier in Birds 365, Jeff, but I'd love to get your take. The one battle going on, the one competition on that offensive line, Andre Dillard, Jordan Mailata. One day it's Dillard, one day it's Mailata. How do you see it as that unfolds in terms of who ultimately might win that competition? Who's the starter? Too early to tell, or do you already know?
You remember the 100-meter final in 2008 with Usain Bolt just basically destroying the field? I feel like Jordan Mailata is Usain Bolt and Andre Dillard is everybody else. He's trying to catch him. And I don't know if Andre Dillard will catch him. I think with pads on, that obviously will be the equalizer here. And the Eagles are going to give Andre Dillard every single opportunity to win this job because he's a first-round pick. But Barrett Brooks has said it. I've heard it. McMullen said it. Mailata's just the better player right now. It's just, will Andre Dillard get the job because he was a high draft pick and because the Eagles traded up for him? And the Eagles invested a lot in Jordan Mailata too. And I think if you ask Jeff Stoutland, it's Jordan Mailata. And, he's just an NFL-ready left tackle right now. There's only 10 or 15 decent offensive tackles in this league. I mean, there aren't a lot of good offensive tackles. And Jordan Mailata is definitely on that list right now. I'm not sure what Andre Dillard is, but if Dillard can show them something in camp, that's going to be something because I'm not going to say he's going to start for the Philadelphia Eagles, but it'd be a nice trade bait for somebody.
Couple of minutes left before we wrap it up here on Birds 365. Jeff Kerr doing great work for us and also a national correspondent for CBS Sports. So he not only covers the Birds, he also covers the entire National Football League. Last thought I want to get from you is the inconsistency so far of Jalen Hurts. Is it a big deal? Perhaps not. If we put everything into context, Jeff, he only started the last 4 games a year ago. He did not get drafted and come into this football team with the expectation that he was going to start right away, lead this team to a conference championship right away, lead this team maybe eventually to a Super Bowl right away. Yet he is our starting quarterback, at least for now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I got to defend Jalen Hurts on this too. Probably going into camp, he didn't even know if he was going to be a starting quarterback, even though he was a starter because of Deshaun Watson rumor. The first time we mentioned him today, which is good. But I will say this with Jalen Hurts. Nothing's going to faze this guy. This guy sees an opportunity. He's just like his head coach. He sees an opportunity, and he's going to take full advantage of it. I'm not worried about the accuracy issues as everybody else is. I want to see what Nick Sirianni sees. They're working on his feet. They're working on his progressions. They aren't going to mess with how he delivers the football. They don't touch that. Quarterbacks are like pitchers. You don't mess with their delivery. You just don't. So they're going to work with the feet. they're going to work. And I will give Jalen Hurts some credit. He's staying inside the pocket. He's working on that part of his game. I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be the problem with this football team. I think there will be inaccuracy at times, but unless you put Zach Ertz in the slot, their wide receiver issue are very concerning because no one stepped up. You figure Travis Fulgham, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Greg Ward, any of those guys, Wes Watkins, Sean Hightower, you would think to yourself, one of those guys would step up, and none of them have yet. And it's early, I know that, but I don't have high expectations for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. John Hightower's a speedster. He's a 5th-round pick. Wes Watkins is a 6th-round pick. I'm not, they are what they are. But Travis Fulgham, I saw some actual talent last year. And again, I shouldn't expect much out of him here. 6th-round pick of 2019. But I thought he'd step up and take the reins while Jalen Reagor is working through his stuff right now. Jalen Reagor's the guy that can make this thing a lot better, make Jalen Hurts' life a lot easier, make the Eagles' offensive life a lot easier. We're going to see a lot of Miles Sanders getting the football, catching it, whatever. Boston Scott, same thing. I think we're going to see a lot underneath stuff this year for the Eagles to cover up a hole outside Devonta Smith that they really probably shouldn't have going into the year.
We'll see if the offense can catch up to the defense this week at camp. Week 2, day number 5 begins today, already getting set to get underway down at the NovaCare Complex. Quick programming and lineup for all of our listeners on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. The middle with Achon Shander, Harry Mays, and, of course, Barrett Brooks coming up 11 to 1. 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. today, the National Football Show with Dan Cilio. And then later on tonight, John McMullen of Birds or Football 24/7, rather, a complete look at day number 5. And, of course, CBS correspondent Jeff Kerr will be right back in the chair tomorrow on Birds 365 with Jody Mack. That's going to do it for our opening day today, Monday, week 2, day 5 of Eagles camp. Until next time, see you, everybody.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.